back, everyone. Life with Breath Expert Series, Breath is Medicine. I'm your host, Ed Harrold, and today I'm joined by the amazing Jen Bailey Hobbs. I've become aware of her life, her journey, her expertise in breath through the Breath Source app, where we are partners and co-creators on this app, which is a global app where we talk about the science and application about how we can use breath to improve the quality of our mind, the quality of our body, and the relationship that we have with our heart, and the journey that we're all here on earth going through in this amazing time of 2024. So welcome, Jen.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you so much for finding time today to talk all things breath. I cannot wait.
The breath is just this amazing thing that's, right underneath our nose that has the ability to change our physiology, change our perception of ourself, our psychology. How did you become aware of the power of breath?
When I was not breathing, basically. I think my life just become complete. It's a bit like I always sort of like visualize it as I was on a running machine of life, and it was just getting faster and faster and faster. And I think my breath was just following suit. And as a consequence of that, about 7 years ago, I was really unwell. I had really affected my mental health. And so I just started just to peel things back to find out, why am I feeling like I'm feeling continually? And I came to the breath and started to slow things down very organically. And as a consequence of that, just learned more about the breath, and it's just helped my nervous system beyond explanation. It's just incredible. And now I just share that with people I love and the world. It's so powerful. It's so simple. 1 minute can change your life.
It really is the secret weapon.
Secret.
So before you became aware of the breath, what was the QOL? What was the quality of your life? What was going on? What caused this kind of awakening?
I have always been somebody that is continually planning, always wanting the next thing. I will be happy when, I'll be happy when I get promoted, because I was a police officer. So I was in the police force and I was working my way up the ranks, always seeking that gratification through promotion, through status, through ego, through just doing. I did not have any comprehension of how to just be. Always living in my head, aiming and pushing for the next thing. As a consequence of that, my physical health was the first thing that was affected. I had a really bad back, and as a consequence, I had 7 major spinal surgeries between my 30s and my 40s, and still didn't listen to my body. Just thought, no, I'll carry on. And I was getting promoted, and I was looking after my children and everything else and serving everybody else. And so my life, I thought, was really good. However, I was constantly tired, and I was constantly serving everybody else, basically, the police force and my family and my friends. And I was dysfunctional breathing without a shadow of a doubt. I was constantly in a state of fight and flight. Absolutely. And then when I started to get some steadiness in my life, I met an amazing man. I got promoted. My children were settled. And I started to become a lot happier and calmer. That's when I become really unwell. And I can remember going to the doctors, and she said, I blame your husband. I said, what do you mean you blame my husband? She said, you are now safe to heal. She said, you have been in fight and flight for 20 years, and you're now in a safe space to heal. She said, take time to heal. And I'm thinking, okay, so how do I do this? And it started off with mindfulness, and which I struggled with to start with, because my mind was bang, 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 bang. And I'm thinking, what's this mindfulness all about? I don't get it. I just assumed you'd be like some Buddha floating with complete silence. But actually, the mind's a beautiful, complex machine. And that's why, and we just say, thank you, thoughts, come back to the breath. Thank you, thoughts, come back to the breath. And so the breath was instrumental in me understanding how to meditate, mindfulness. And then I thought, gosh, I'm really starting to feel calm. And I was noticing my heart rate was slowing down. My anxiety was reducing, because I was living in the moment so much more than in my head. And as a consequence, and I just carried on just to develop so many different aspects of it, and then now share that. Now I've moved on from policing and just share it with as many people as I can.
Yeah, what a great story. And congratulations for the courage it takes to, kind of put your spiritual foot down and say, something's not quite right.
Mm, definitely. And just recognizing that is the biggest step, because ask when you can, so you, as soon as you meet anyone, I'm sure you're the same, you can firstly see how they're breathing, and secondly see what they need. And more often than not, people say, well, I don't need the breath, I breathe every day, what you want about? And it's actually, no, you so need the breath, you so need to consciously breathe and just reconnect. And just give me 5 minutes with somebody and
Yeah. It's
history.
amazing that there's so few things in our life that are a sure thing. Like it
Mm,
works 100% of the time. Here I am in Utah, the United States, and you have that beautiful accent. You're in another part of this beautiful globe that we live in, and it works over there.
mm. It's
So great. It's like magic.
It's totally magical. And I just think wherever I do, you just feel like you're weaving your magic, weaving it with the breath, and into it. It's interwoven with the mind and the heart and the soul and the body. And it is so magical.
So sometimes my curiosity gets me in trouble. Sometimes it doesn't. But where are you on the planet?
So I'm in West Wales in the UK on the west coast, which is absolutely stunning. We're surrounded by fabulous hills. Our house overlooks the sea. Yeah, very blessed, in a very special space. We relocated here 5 years ago to start a new life, to be nearer my own family, but also to have a life on the sea, but a much slower pace, to start a business, a retreat and wellness, just to share the breath. Basically, the breath has been fundamental in all our life decisions in the last 7 years.
Well, the great thing about the breath is it never leaves true north. It's always
Mm,
in the truth. Sometimes,
totally.
sometimes we don't want to hear it, but this breath teaches accountability,
Mm,
responsibility to all our thoughts and feelings, speech and actions.
mm. Definitely. But it also can help you distract from them as well, can't it? So if you're actually breathing so erratically, that's also a way that you can avoid dealing with anything, isn't it? You can sort of just, yeah. So yeah, when you're ready and you're true to yourself, the breath will show you the way.
How does it
Magic.
feel to live being around the ocean?
It's just, I can't. It's just so fresh, and it's so calming. And
Mhm.
since I've moved near the sea, then I've embraced cold water, sea swimming in the winter. And then that's not cold enough. So I've now invested in an ice bath and an air source pump so I can get it down to like 3 degrees. And I'm in there most days, completely guided by the breath. So it's just amazing. It's just so, so good. And it's just slows everything down, because it's just made me so much more aware of all my senses, because it's just an abundance, a plethora of of feelings and emotions and activities and vibrations around here. So it's magical, absolutely magical. And people are ready for it around here as well. It's a slightly slower pace of life. There's less traffic. And everyone's just like so welcoming. Magic.
Yeah, it really seems since COVID that there's been an awakening on the planet, that some of the things that I thought about myself, the community I'm in, the medical world, the political world, that uh, might not be what I thought it was.
Mm,
And this is causing me to reevaluate how I'm taking care of myself, how I'm taking care of my family. Where is where am I being presented the truth, and where am I being presented information that might not be true?
mm, absolutely. And I think that when you have that time and you have that awareness, it's just everything's just seems so much clearer. It does
Yeah.
to me. to my own needs when I step out of my own way and just allow my body to tell me. I'm always trusting my body to tell me what I need. And I just become so much more perceptive as well in relation to what others need, what others are saying. I just seem to be able to sniff out the truth. Sometimes you can almost identify when that truth's not coming as well, because you're just so much more perceptive. Your intuition is so much more enlightened due to the breath and due to the mindfulness mindset.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. That old third dimension reality that seems to be withering on the vine, the phrases of like always and never, and these polarities and dualities really seem to be kind of dissipating to a lot of people on earth in regard to how they're showing up in the moment.
Definitely, absolutely. And I think as long as you can I strive to be my authentic self. And sometimes it might not be everyone's cup of tea, but I am who I am. And I know we've had conversations, haven't we, and about, how you show up. And I just want to show up as my authentic self. And then I just feel that when I do that, it tends to, that vibration goes out. And I find that when people tend to be a lot more authentic with me,
Yeah.
and that's so your own love and energy is cascading through others and having that real positive influence.
Yeah, you have to be you.
Yes.
Like I was saying to a patient yesterday, everybody else is taken.
Mm,
You've got to be you. At the end of the day, on some level, you have to show up for the moment. And in that, however you can get yourself to the present moment,
mm,
it's a great opportunity, because that you can go right, you can go left, you can go straight, but you can't freeze in fear.
mm,
So it causes action or
mm.
commitment just to
Def-
hang in there for another moment and notice you're okay.
yes, absolutely. And it's just, and no one else, as you say, everyone else is taken. Only you can be you. And once you realize that, it's a really beautiful space to be in, because then you start to value you, because you think, well, actually, there's nobody else. And why am I comparing myself to somebody else? Because I always say comparison is a thief of joy. And it's just like, just be you and allow you to speak to you and find that time to allow you just to be. And yeah, once you realize that, everyone's striving to be, especially, social media, people are looking at other people and striving to be something they're not, or something they could never be, or something. Why would you want to be? Everyone's so beautiful in their own bodies and their own souls. It's just be your authentic self. It's just much more interesting. So much more
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, life gets messy pretty fast. If we take our hands off the steering wheel, we can fall off the tracks pretty quickly. It doesn't take a
Mm,
lot to throw off our self-esteem, our self-confidence. And, you know, at the basic level, there's really just two of us. There's the human doer who's out there competing and, doing what it needs to do. And then there's this human being
mm,
that's inside us that really never moves and just watches the doer all the time and waits patiently, for our attention to move inward back to the being. And the
mm,
being consoles us, and I've got you, and I love you. It doesn't matter what the doer's doing, because I'm always here for you, because remember, you're a human being doing.
mm.
You're not a
Yes,
human doer being. So
absolutely.
you think about this being and how much love it has for this doer who is just bumping into the walls, doesn't know where the light switch is, doing the best he or she can. But let's face it, the doer really isn't us.
No. And I've been a monster doer. And I can still revert back to that default monster doer. And I think the way I can really relate to that is I've been on so I've obviously been on my mental health journey and my spiritual health journey, but now in the last 18 months, I've been on my physical health journey. And I sort of now 73 weeks, not that I'm counting, was 8 stone heavier, so 50 kg or 52 kg heavier than what I am now. And
What?
yeah, so I've lost, yeah, how many pounds have I lost? I don't know, 115 pounds. Yeah, I've
Wait a
lost.
second. Stop the tape. Stop the presses. You have shedded the Doers 115 pounds
Yeah,
in how long?
73 weeks.
That is mind-boggling.
Mm,
That's self-love.
mm,
That's healing.
mm.
That's forgiveness.
Massive
That's
forgiveness.
gratitude.
That's love.
Can we explore that? Or do you feel
Mm,
comfortable speaking
yeah,
about that at all?
totally. Yeah. And I think that, yeah, like over the years, I've roller coasted with my weight. I've had a really dysfunctional relationship with food. I would use food for my dopamine, would be,
Mhm,
food my pleasure. So food would be, if I was sad, I would eat. If I was celebrating, I'd eat. There was
mhm,
no time that my mouth wasn't moving,
mhm,
and I was mouth breathing and eating as well, So all the and and it got to a stage where I had obviously had my mental health episode where I was just literally has burnt out. So I took some time, and as I was mending my mental health, my weight started to pile up even more because I wasn't going out, because I literally didn't leave the house. I was in a really sad space. And then I always knew my physical health would catch up, but I knew I had to be it had to be the right time. And I think it was a time of when I decided I needed to love myself, because no flower grew without love. And so I had to really start inside to really love and care for myself. And I say it's the 3 C's. You care about what I eat, care about how much I move, but not care about what anyone else says or does.
right.
So they were my 3 C's that really were underpinning this transition. And yeah, now I reflect now on how much weight I've lost, and I love my body
Mhm,
so much more now when it was bigger, because I hated myself. I couldn't look in the mirror. I'd be in tears. I was really in, I couldn't fit in any clothes. I was a really big size 22. I don't know if it's the same in the States, but now I'm like an 8, 10. And I didn't want to go out, and I had super loads of confidence with my work arena, very successful, but my confidence in relation to my own deep inner confidence was always really challenged. But now when I look back, I love my old body, because my old being was just waiting for my doing to catch up.
mhm,
My old body was waiting for me to start to
mhm.
love it and care about it. And now I've I'm more whole. My internal narrative has changed. I have so much more capacity for my business, my wellness. I'm just, well, I'm half the size.
Mhm.
And now I'm just inspiring people all over the world to, to just take control and just believe that they can actually have a real influence on their own wellness and their own health. I probably added 20 years onto my life, definitely. And I'm just encouraging others now to hopefully do the same. Because when you're 8 stone overweight, 111 pounds, it's a very dark place, because it's a big amount of weight. It's like, I sort of laugh as it's a bit like weeing in the wind. It's
Mhm.
just, where do you begin? But it's each day, day one. And yeah, and I joined the Francis Diet, which is amazing coach, and he guided me and made me accountable.
Mhm.
It's consistency and accountability. I could talk for hours, but yeah. So basically, my heart is now, and my mind are now more aligned, and I care more about my body.
Could you help me understand what the gratitude must be like when you've got this one version of yourself that is completely at war with health and understanding and feeling good about ourselves? Then you go through this transformation where you get on the other side of this, where there was all this hatred and separation and isolation, and now you're telling me you're grateful for
Mm.
what you went through? How does that occur?
It only recently occurred, and I'll tell you how it occurred, because we were on holiday and we had two suitcases and both of them weighed 28 kg each. And I said to Chris, my husband, oh my God, this is how much weight I've lost, these two suitcases. Let me pull these suitcases up this hill. Because a year ago, I walked up the hill carrying the weight on my body. And he went, oh, crack on then, that
Wow.
saves me. And he says, girl, that's great. That saves me pulling the suitcases up, because you just, come on. And I
That's
pulled,
great.
I know, and I videoed it and pulled it up the hill. And when I got to the top of the hill, I thought, oh my God, I can hardly breathe. And then I just thought, my God, this is what I've got rid of. I am so grateful for my body before, because it never made me ill. I didn't have high blood pressure. I didn't have diabetes. I didn't have, it was so kind to me. It was just waiting for me to care. So that's where the gratitude is, the fact that I didn't have anything seriously wrong with me when I was carrying so much weight. And actually, I probably deserved to, because I hadn't cared for myself. So if anything was going to go wrong, that's a time that because that's
Mhm.
what happens. If you're really, really heavy, then you might have joint problems or whatever. So that's where the gratitude is, but also the gratitude for that inner demon, my mindset, effort by Jen Bailey Hobbs. No one else can do it. And I always used to
Right.
say, I've got so much control over my life, but I can't control my weight. And I remember someone saying, your weight is the one thing you've got control over
Hmm.
out of anything. That's the one thing, because actually you're responsible for what you put in your mouth. So the gratitude is there, for being reason, as well as I could be when I was carrying the weight. But the gratitude also now is that I've got this clear, my narrative is just so different. I can't explain how my narrative was before. Probably 90% of my internal narrative was criticizing me before, was saying, look at you, why have you let yourself go like that? Everything's such a struggle, it's draining. And now it's like, I wake up and it's like, there's no voices.
Right. Right.
There's no narrative. It's now just, come on, girl, what are we going to do today? Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Our alarm's now set at 4:45 in the morning, and you're going to be in the gym at 5 every
Yeah.
single morning. To do this,
Yeah.
and then you're going to walk, and then you're going to bounce around and irritate the pants off everyone. She's got so much energy.
This is fantastic. You know, I hate the third dimensional labels of because labeling to me is just mental laziness, but like addiction or uh, you know, just hurting ourselves and it becomes so personal and obviously it's so much deeper than our thoughts.
Mm,
There's something greater going on because when we get on my experience has been when I work with folks that get on the other side of whether it's food or alcohol or gambling or sex or whatever it may be, all of a sudden they're like grateful that they
mm,
went through it. And
yeah,
like
but you,
before the journey, they were like, "There's nothing wrong with me. Leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. Screw everybody else." And then they go through this, whatever this is, which is beyond any type of words because it really can't be explained why the craving to harm oneself is removed.
mm,
And then you have everybody go, man, I am so grateful I was an alcoholic. And
yeah,
it's just like being human is amazing.
it is amazing. And I think you're probably grateful for, I'm grateful for the fact that the inner me has just shown so much resilience and shown I'm so capable. And I always knew I was, and I always knew, like, I'm lighter than I was in my 20s before I had my children. And part of me thinks, oh, I wish I knew then what I knew now. But actually, I wouldn't be on this path now, helping others and sharing my story if I hadn't gone through what I had gone through. So it just makes you so much more richer as a human being, to be able to experience such darkness and then just appreciate the cracks of light coming through, but ensuring that you're doing good from it. It's not a case of now, oh gosh, I'm just going to be self-indulgent and I just want to do so much good out of my journey, through all aspects of my journey, that it's just, yeah.
Can you share with us what it's what your experience was like being a mom and then having a family and seeing what the youngsters' reaction was to mom.
In relation to when I was bigger,
Yeah, and then where you are now, like,
yeah, it's quite
and who
interesting.
you are now.
Yeah, I can remember my son, because I don't know if you've seen Mrs. Doubtfire. Have you seen Mrs. Doubtfire? It's probably not.
Yeah,
It's an
that's
American.
great.
Yeah, so she put the fat suit, a body woman's, and I can remember my youngest going, "Oh, you look like you've got a fat suit on, mum." And I was, oh my God, what kids cut out of the mouth of babes, but that still wasn't enough to motivate me. And because I'm 5'10", I never looked when I was young as a mum ginormous, as in, but I put most of my weight on, probably I would say in the last sort of 7 years, rather when they were older and they're off. But now it's quite funny, my children will cuddle me now and go, "Oh, you're half the woman you were." And Edward said the other day, "Oh, I preferred my fat mum because you don't drink anymore now." And it's like, well, your fat mum's gone now, so you've got your young mum. And I said, "Now keep up," but I know they're secretly very, very proud of me. And actually, my youngest really struggles with his weight. And I sometimes think maybe this is another reason why I've been on this journey, because he has now started on this journey, the journey I started 18 months ago, and he's really starting to look after himself. So, they watch, they're inspired. And now my youngest has lost a stone in the last 3 weeks, and I think he will be having a very similar conversation in a year's time that we're having now.
Well, what goes around comes around.
Yeah, the eyes and the little eyes and ears are all watching. And I feel like what I feel like now is that I have a responsibility to be my best version, to be my healthiest version for my children, so they're not worrying about having to care for me when I'm older, but also just to be the healthiest role model for my grandchild as well. My bum's now small enough I can go down a child slide with her. All these things that I really did. I'm able to get down and change her nappy and get back up without leaning and someone pulling me up. All those things that you take for granted. But I'm so much stronger and leaner, so I'm able to just enjoy life more. It's more fulfilling.
I always look to simplify complicated situations or something that appears to be complicated. Where can I find the simplicity in it? And when we talk about the challenges that you went through and the challenges that we're all going through, the head has a tendency to make things more complicated than what it is for some reason. And the heart has the tendency to simplify things that look to be extremely complicated. Can you explain what your journey was like in making that transformation of like separation, isolation, loneliness, hurting myself, and then to where you are now, where it just seems like it's just one step after another of just simplifying life?
Keeping it really simple. My coach said to me, and this was a massive light bulb moment, I can remember saying to him, "I've never always been this fat." And that's a little bit of pity. And actually, when I understand it now, that I think I was probably going for the sympathy and asking him subliminally to just be kind on me, but that is not coming, because my coach was not like that. He's absolutely transparent and just what I needed. There was no fall. He just literally says it as it is, and he still does, because he still coaches me each week. But he said, "You are not fat. You are carrying fat." And that is an overconsumption of energy and over calories. And so I made that connection. This is not permanent. I can change this. I'm not fat. I'm carrying it, and I can burn it off. And so for that was that real, just that completely connected everything up for me, because I'd always felt overweight. I'd always felt, just maybe through ancestral trauma probably coming through, diet, relationships with diet and food and weight coming through family lines. But now I wasn't fat. It was temporary, and it's gone now because I burnt it off, and I've consumed less. I've moved more.
Can you explain for folks out there what those first little baby steps were like when the light bulb first went off, where you knew things had to change but didn't really know how you were going to do it? How'd you have the mental discipline to stay with that?
Each day is day one.
Right.
Every single day is day one, day one, day one. Get up, consistent. If you lie in bed and think, oh, you know, don't lie in bed and think, oh, I'll have another half an hour. Just get up and move.
Right.
Weigh everything that you eat. Find a good coach. So for me, it's just about consistency, and every day is day one. And eventually what happens is that you just feel so much better. You start to value yourself. You find you have more energy, and then you just get dopamine from different means. And the
Right.
breath has been really instrumental through this weight loss, the breath and cold water, because obviously the breath through the exercise, the breath through the meditation, and through the visualization, and through the positive affirmations. So there's been a big process of lots of different things going on just to support this mindset, because it's all in your head. And in your head is so many hundreds of thousands of thoughts, and none of them your own.
Right.
Few,
Exactly.
very few. Yeah. And so actually, but when you start to take control, you start to actually develop some of your own thoughts and some of your own values, and some of the old ones just get pushed away, because you think, actually, you start seeing the light almost, thinking, where did these thoughts come from? Oh, I know. Ancestrally carried down, childhood, society.
Most of our thoughts aren't ours,
No,
but we own them like they are ours.
totally. So our subconscious doesn't know anything different. And when you're constantly repeating and constantly the same narrative, you're just keeping your body in this traumatic state, you know. And if you're saying I'm fat, well, then it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. At the age of 13, I thought I was fat, and I told myself I was fat. So it's inevitable. You're going to become fat.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. And now, and from the moment I started this journey, I started to love myself, and my narrative changed. You're beautiful, you're strong, you're enough. This weight is temporary. And you've got to work bloody hard as well. You can't just wake up and think, I'll think myself thin. But, you know, I think I did over 4 million steps in the first year.
You know, when you add those 4 million steps to taking less breaths, it turns into 8 million.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
interesting, this whole thing we call energy. You know, we can't really see it. You know, I mean, we can see someone moving energetically. Wow, that person's got a lot of energy, but that's usually hyperactivity or an emotional
Mm.
outburst. But, you know, I hear you speaking about, you know, having more energy, and, you know, how your breathing plays such a huge role in the amount of potential energy. I mean, energy in the sense of the physical sense of the capacity to be you, the capacity to do
Mm.
things. Like, you need energy.
Mm.
And it's funny, when we have low energy, low enthusiasm, you know, we have low awareness. We're just
Mm.
repeating the same day after day after day. This is what I do. And then something goes on, and then we begin to control our breath or do different exercise in a way that creates more energy with a
Mm.
resting heart rate. And in that, something happens to our neural activity, where we have, let's just say, more self-awareness of who we were, which is the reactionary self. We're always reacting. And now who we are now, which is a responding awareness to the moment, which creates a better tomorrow.
Mm.
Can you explain a little bit about how having access to more energy, or a pure form of energy, helps your self-awareness?
With the breath, when I slow everything down, and it's very true what you say, because you have a much more of a lower resting heart rate, but you have so much more capacity to do
Hmm.
so much, and not necessarily like running around doing it, but for an example, now my day is probably 4 hours longer than it's ever been,
Hmm.
because I have more energy, physical energy, but I wouldn't say that I'm zooming around everywhere, but I'm achieving so much more. But also for me, my energy is not just about moving around, it's just about emotional energy, spiritual energy, the energy that I'm sharing. I have so much more capacity for forgiveness. I have so much more capacity for self-love. Which is all really high vibrational energies. I really am able to dismiss guilt, and try not to hold on to that guilt. And my fear is reducing, which is obviously a really low vibrational energy. And so all these emotional elements to my life are just leveling out. And so my vibration is just so much, I feel just so much more higher, and when you're on this path and you are vibrating, you just attract your tribe, don't you? I don't know if you've, just, things call in, the universe just delivers so much more when you're on this energetic path. It's a bit like you wake up in the morning, you think, I got out of bed the wrong side. You can guarantee if you wake up with that mindset, you're going to spill your coffee down your shirt before you walk into the office. Every traffic light's going to be red, and you're not going to find a parking space when you get to work. You can guarantee if that's how you get out of bed. But if you're getting out of bed thinking, right, I'm going to be mindful, I can hear the sounds of the birds, I can breathing, I can see the sun coming, just the basic things. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for myself. I'm grateful for my beautiful body that enables me to experience everything life has to offer. And then the vibration comes up and you're forgiving, you're kind, just be kind. And then suddenly you're on this vibration, and everything, the things that come your way, when you give away some money to somebody that day that you really couldn't afford to, you can guarantee the money will come back in abundance. And if you're giving away that kindness, you can guarantee someone else. It's just, that's how I view energy, rather than going on a 10-mile run.
Right. It's funny how
Don't know if
no, I think it's fantastic. I'm a firm believer that when I can get my wounded self out of the way, that everything in my life is happening for my benefit, not my detriment. In other words, an old memory might pop up in my head, and I'm ashamed of it, or, wow, I wish I would have done that differently. And if I just notice it and don't self-identify with old Ed, it won't have as much pull on my perception of self the next time it comes up, and it might not even come up ever again. So it seems like consciousness, when we choose to awaken from our slumber or become more conscious where we were unconscious, it's trying to purify us. It's trying to clear our memory of our past, so that where we're going, we're lighter, we're brighter, we're more vibrant, we're more human. Can you relate to everything in our life could be or is happening for our benefit?
Yeah, and everything happens for a reason as well, without a shadow of doubt. And yeah, absolutely. So when you say we feel grateful for a period where maybe you're not looked after yourself, or you're addicted to drugs, or addicted to alcohol, or sex, or gambling, but actually that is for your benefit, because actually you will become a greater version of yourself as a consequence of what you've experienced. So yes, I've probably had not such great relationships in the past and made mistakes, but in order for that to have happened, I know now, moving forward, what I didn't want in a relationship, or how I didn't want to behave, or not having boundaries before, was the beginning of my mental health decline. And so actually that was for my benefit, because actually I had a mental health decline, and as a consequence now I'm stronger, and I have really strong boundaries. And boundaries, self-care and movement, and no, and try and almost have your default as no, and then you're open for persuasion moving forward, rather than constantly yes and pleasing people. So yeah, I definitely agree that everything is to make us our best version.
Did you discover that there was love in your fear?
Yeah, because otherwise you wouldn't have the fear, because if you didn't really care, why would you be scared of anything? So yeah. And actually fear, it's a bit like imposter syndrome. I still struggle from my little imposter syndrome, and it's sat there going, yeah. because you care. And I suppose in a way that's a really loose version of fear, isn't it? And that's all driven from love, because you really love what you do, or you want to make sure that you provide the best environment, the best healing space, or whatever you happen to be doing that makes you have those little voices doubting yourself. But yeah, but fear, I try and move out the way of fear, and actually I get quite excited for fear, because I'm thinking,
Right.
right, that's an indication I really need to bloody do this. So
Yeah.
that is, if there's some fear there, that almost is as that's a green light. That means you've got to do this, Jen. Yeah. And that was a bit like the ice for me initially. There was a massive fear. But like when I was in the police, firearms, guns were a big fear of mine. So I thought, well, they're a fear, so now I need to become a firearms officer. And I was one of the first female firearms officer in the police force ever, and we were talking the early 90s, because that was driven by fear and respect. Yeah, so definitely.
Seems like a lot of our learnings come from what we could classify as counterintuitiveness.
Mm,
So it's
definitely.
interesting, how fear enters our life when we're not really a good gatekeeper. We're
Mm,
just a youngster, and we have our family, and we have mommy and daddy, and then we have the social, we have the teacher and the minister, and we have to constantly, when we're a child, ask permission, and we just, our minds are molded into something that might not be good for us. But
definitely.
as we develop seniority and get older, and we get beyond the role of being a daughter or a son, or being a student, or someone who's being told what to do by the church, we begin to see that we can transcend and go beyond the old version of how society was interacting.
Mm,
And then we can put that in the rearview mirror. Then we're kind of free to create with that information in the background, but now we're present with a more self-aware version of ourselves.
mm, definitely. And fear incident for me was installed from a really young age. I was told little girls should be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
Which and that was the 60s, maybe a 60s thing, I don't know. So I've always been sort of trying to push against that. And then I went into banking, and that was very restrictive and very sexist, and really no opportunities at all in the 80s for women. And then when I went into a police organization where there was 2% were women and the rest were men. So, I've constantly felt that I've had to sort of push back, push to, and I suppose the fear comes in from people almost trying to clip your wings around you and prevent you from growing into your, higher self. But now I feel that, as you say, when you get older and I've provided myself in an environment, almost engineered my own environment, that I'm able to sort of grow. And if fear just creeps in, then I'm able to deal with it and embrace it. But
That's so
I
well
hated
said.
it. Mm,
Because it just seems like across the globe, for as long as I can remember, the feminine energy, or women have kind of not been equal to men, and just because men have more testosterone and can carry heavier loads physically,
mm,
what gives them the right to think they're better than women? I mean, I was brought up in that,
mm,
men are in charge, and you go to dad,
mm,
for everything. And that was just how it was in our house. It was a perfectly healthy house. I mean, dad and
mm,
mom were completely healthy. Dad just had the loudest voice,
mm.
but he was completely loving.
Yeah.
That's just how it was. And
Mm,
mom was mom, and mom did the cooking, and mom did that, and mom did the errands while dad was out working. And it seemed to work, but I could see how it could get very dysfunctional if there was inferiority issues in other
mm.
families.
Yeah.
Because
I,
let's face
yeah.
it,
Yeah.
There is no birthing of any of us to have these experiences without mom in the physical
Mm,
sense. There is no
totally.
birthing of new perceptions of ourselves without feminine energy. So all
Mm,
birthing of new ideas, new strategies, new concepts, new ways of showing up, in my mind, is always feminine. You're discarding an old male model,
mm,
which is probably very third dimensional, very dual pain pleasure. And now, anytime there's been a revelation in my mind, I always honor that as something feminine. I mean, there's a
mm,
new paradigm in my mind about how I can show up and use that feminine idea in a male way, because the male being action and the
mm,
female being the creative force.
mm,
The female
definitely.
can usually predict the future
Mm,
intuitively about what's going to occur much more efficiently than the male, who's
mm,
usually making a decision in the present moment based on yesterday,
mm.
if
Yeah,
that makes
absolutely.
sense.
Oh, makes complete sense. And I bounce between my masculine and feminine energy.
Oh, yeah.
We all do. And, and I think having worked in the policing environments 30 years, and yeah, I had to tap into a lot of my masculine energy in order to get there. And I think my business has grown so quickly because of my masculine energy and the fact I'm very much a doer. However, my healing, as you say, my creativity is all very much the feminine. I used to always, and what I love and what's so important is just being a role model. And I know as I was working for the police service and becoming more a senior and obviously have more of an influence of, and I become a female senior police officer role model. And that was a really empowering place to be. And now I see myself as that role model for my granddaughter. And it's super exciting because life is so different now to it was when I was a child and when I first started in policing 30 years ago. There is so many more opportunities. And now little girls should be seen and need to be as sassy as they can be, and they need to push
Right.
back, and anything is achievable. Anything. It's irrelevant. It's just down to your soul and down to how much hard you work and how kind you are. It doesn't matter if you're male or female.
I'm going to get your opinion on this. Being a police officer, unless it's a felony, something that's really egregious, most of being a good police officer is feminine. It's
Mm,
about creating communication with someone or a group of people where we need to change how we're communicating about a particular thing that has just occurred. And I think
mm-hmm,
the really, really great police officers, even though it shows up with a badge or a gun, or it shows up very in a uniform, very, military, like male-ish, but I think the really good ones create kind of a feminine opportunity where a paradigm shift in the communication of where we're stuck
mm,
can change.
yeah.
And then we can begin to communicate differently. And then
Mm.
if it has to get, something physical, then I mean, obviously the male would come in. But most of being a really good police officer is being feminine.
Mm. It's definitely about you being really showing that empathy and being able to just communicate in just in a really wide range of just for different audiences. Yeah, definitely. And I think that yeah, there is times that you need to obviously be really directive, if there's a public order incident or a firearms incident, or
Right.
and I think the more senior you come, you had when you're controlling incidents, critical incidents, risk management, organizational threat. However, yeah, that real stuff that made a difference, that stuff that really changed lives, was the stuff about actually just being able to communicate and being in your, yeah, I suppose I never looked at it like that. Yeah, you are in your sort of divine feminine in
Yeah.
order to, yeah, in order to just communicate. But then sometimes some people wouldn't respond to that, but more often than not, yeah, the big, because when you're dealing with children and domestic violence and staff, and yeah, definitely.
Well, once emotion gets so high, where it's so emotionally charged, intellect or reason drops because we're
Mm,
feeling threatened. So, using the breath, using the feminine of the police officer to lower the emotion so a
def-
new mental awareness can arise, and then we can move forward.
Yeah. And quite a few of my breathwork clients are police officers, and it's really had helped them. It has helped them. And I wish I'd known more about it when I was there before going into a firearms incident. But, we used, to be fair, actually, even years ago, the breath was used before, shooting and things like that, before, doing your reclassification, it'd all be down to the breath. So actually, I was doing it without even realizing. Yeah. And that was in the 80s. Yeah.
Wow. But the
Yeah.
breath has just gotten popular,
Mm.
as a health tool, as a performance tool, as an exercise tool, in the last 30 years. But it's always been there.
Of course it has.
And it just wasn't like when I first started, I was just shunned by people. Like, here's this breathing guy, he's going to talk about breathing, and I don't want to talk about breathing. I already breathe and I know how to do it. So there's all this male energy of know-it-all,
Mm.
and just since the early 90s to where we are now, I mean, now you can't go anywhere without somebody talking about breath, whether it's, you know, good
Mm.
or bad. Either way, it's communication.
But also, people still say that, though. I don't need to know about the breath. I do it anyway. What's this? But they're the ones that they just don't want to hear the
Right.
answers.
So,
The breath is a really good distraction. That dysfunctional breathing, hyperventilation is a good distraction from, dealing with what's really going on.
yeah, there's two ways. There's the I don't know, and then there's the I don't want to know.
Mm.
It's like, because there's so many people just, I don't want to know. I just, I'm happy where I am. And, any more information is just too much for me right now, even
Until they
though
have,
you're going to feel
yeah,
great.
yeah, until they have a health scare or something happens, and then people think, oh, maybe there was something in that. I'll tell you what, I'll go and speak to Jen.
Well,
That's
I
what
think
usually,
people miss the bigger picture that
of course they
any
do.
time in our history when there's a paradigm shift, there's fear.
Mm.
So there's a lot of fear around this breath thing. Most
Mm.
people don't really know anything about it. I mean, 1 out of 10, you know,
Mm.
1 out of 20. So there's a paradigm shift taking place on Earth, and breath control is part of it. And this is taking time, but it's actually happening very quickly. But
Mm.
any time there was a change in consciousness, the first human reaction is fear.
Mm.
In other words, if you sail your boat out to that horizon, you're going to fall off and go down and never be seen again.
Mm.
If you take your carriage out of this village on these wheels, you're never going to find your way back because it's scary out there. We only stay here.
Mm.
So when you look at the bigger picture of like how humanity and consciousness evolves, this is no different than any other shift.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see where it's going. Really
Well,
excited.
it's going to a place where there's going to be a lot more love. There's going to be a lot more understanding. There's going to be no lying. No one will be able to lie to themselves or anyone else. It's going to be a much more human
Mm.
experience.
Yeah.
There's going to be no more greed, no more wars, no more hate, no more projection. There's going to be no yesterday or tomorrow. There's going to be now,
Mm.
present time. It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. And I think the older we're living as well, and I think you should say, if we all know that we're going to be living to 100 and 110, because obviously,
Yes.
then you just want it to have a kinder life. There's going to be more love
Hmm.
because you're around for so much longer. It's just, why would you just couldn't sustain a long, long life full of hate, and no, it'd just be exhausting.
I've just become aware of that recently. Thank you so much for bringing that up because that's one of the huge things that I think we're missing about longevity,
Mm.
about living longer. And there's science that's coming out. There's things that are coming out that we're going to start to live a lot longer, the ones who are
Mm.
going to live. And if you're being born and you socially are going to become aware at a young age, you're going to be around for 150 years. You're going to look at the world totally different because you're going to be here a long time, and you're not going to want to be that person who's hated.
Mm.
You're going to want to be a good citizen to yourself, your friends, a steward to the planet. I mean, it's going to change everything when we start to become aware that we can live twice as long. And I don't mean
Mm.
just wither on the vine old age. I mean being vibrant all the way to the end.
Totally, absolutely. I hear you. Yeah, 100%.
Well, I'm
You know,
excited
like,
to be part of this with you.
yeah, and it's just been so beautiful to connect. We've got such a wonderful breath source family, haven't we? And it's just been an absolute honor to be invited onto the app and just be part of this family and just to share the powers of the breath and just so many different ways. It's just, I love every aspect of the breath source, and this has just been so good to connect with you and all the other amazing humans on there.
Yeah, I'm grateful for the breast source because I would have never met you. And your
Thank you.
story is so inspiring to me and everyone in my life and everyone who's going to watch this video. And I mean, women, let's face it, the health of the planet revolves around the health of the women. That's a
100%.
very little secret, everybody.
Yeah, of
So if you
course it
have
does.
some things out there you personally need to clean up with the women in your life, take a breath and see if there's a way that you could find peace having a
Mhm.
conversation with someone today or tomorrow.
Yeah. And
'Cause
just, authentically, everything should be just drive from the heart. Just be authentic and just kind, and just everything should be interwoven with love. It's just, that's what we are. That's all we are, is love.
that is, that's what I say, dude. We stink at hate.
Yeah, we really do.
I don't know anybody who's good at hate.
Mm, no.
It's just a choice that's there to remind us of what we're not.
Mm. And that's and that also, we talk about hate, that's also that internal hate as well. You
Yeah,
will grow, start to love yourself.
yeah.
And self-love is not selfish, it's self-full. That's just what I try to say. It's about actually ensuring your own cup is completely full, and then you are your best version. So that you can just be a better mother, a better father, better husband, brother. Why would you not want to be your best version so that, your family are supported, and your friends and yourself? Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for
Jen,
inviting
you're
me.
one of a kind. I
Thank you to Ed.
appreciate you. I look forward to catching up with you on our next meeting on the app.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Have a beautiful day.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.